Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi yassir li wa la tu'assir. Rabbi tammim bil khair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sorry that we had to postpone it 1 week for some other program. So today is the topic on condolence. Condolence. Before we express condolence to anybody, there must be some calamity, right? There must be some calamity. It could be either somebody becomes ill, or somebody pass away, or somebody got into an accident, or somebody fall into the drain or something, then there is a calamity, then only we express our condolence. But before we go into how we express our condolence, I think we should look at the calamity itself from the Quranic perspective. Because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Al-Baqarah, verse 155, if you want to make reference. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. The next verse, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ أُولَئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. So those are the three verses that are very relevant for this particular topic, because it describes the calamity, and there are various calamities. The meaning, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Surely we shall test you, Allah says. Surely we shall test you in fear. Khawf is fear. In other words, one of the tests is to become fearful. You become fearful. You are fearful of certain thing, right? Certain calamity that will come. Right? So fear is one test. The other one, ju' means hunger. You are being tested through hunger. The next one, وَنَقْسِمْ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ. وَنَقْسِمْ means when there is a shortage or cut down, right? Cut down of what? Or reduction of your wealth, min al-amwal, wal-anfusi, from your soul, right? And also from wathamarat, from fruits. Fruits could be orchards, fruits could be fruit of labor, and so on and so forth, right? And then he says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, and give glad tidings to those people who are patient. Give the glad tidings to those people who are patient. I will try to explain these things more clearly. In fact, Ustaz Ali Redha had already explained this before. I attended his lecture here. Right? The same verse. Right? But I'm going through it again because it is in English. The last time was in Malay. So, when it is a test from fear, fear, as I said, could be in various forms of calamities. Right? Suppose there is an explosion. Suppose there is an explosion near your house. Or suppose there is a big fire in the vicinity of your house. What would you feel? Oh, don't tell me it's my house. That means there is some fear in you that it will affect you because it is your house. It could be your house. When you come, oh, it is not your house, alhamdulillah, it is not. But if it is, what do you do? And this is where Allah tells us what to do. Now before that, when you say about explosion, I remember there is a story about somebody who has a very big factory, and there was an explosion in the factory. This factory happens to be in the middle of Europe. So when there is a huge explosion, Fire brigade came from various countries, from Norway, from Amsterdam, from Holland, from France, from Luxembourg, and so on and so forth. They all came because the thing happened somewhere in the middle of Europe. So various fire brigades came. The explosion was so huge, the fire was so huge, and the owner of the factory was there shouting at people, please save my black box in the factory. It's a black box which is full of his recipes, of all his secrets. Right? So he wanted somebody to save the black box. But because the fire was so intense, nobody could go in. Everybody was just looking. Even the fire brigades came, they could do nothing. Suddenly one old fire brigade from Norway arrived and went right into the fire, saved the black box, and took it out and go to the other side of the fire. Because this owner said, first he said he offered $50,000 if you can save the black box. Nobody came in. He increased 100,000, nobody came in. He increased to 200,000, this Norway fellows came. So these people got 200,000. So they went to see the fire brigade chief and asked him, what will you do with the 200,000? The first thing I will do is to check my brakes. Because the brake was faulty, that's why he went into the fire. Not because he was daring enough, no, because of the brake, no brakes. So the first thing I will do is to check my brakes, to repair my brakes. So that was an explosion, right? Now, so explosion will also cause fear. Fear itself is a test. How you face the fear. Right? Secondly, from hunger. How you face when you are hungry. How you face the test of hunger when you are hungry. Right? Are you shouting at people? Or what you do? You know? Same thing, when you lose some money or some of your wealth being destroyed, being stolen, right? Or somebody got killed, some of your nearest relative, your son or your children, whatever, got killed. Right? What happened? Or when you lose the fruits, that means the orchard, the harvest, the product of the orchard and so on, right? Your estate gone, right? So what happened? Allah says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. All these are just tests. The most important thing is give glad tidings to those people who are patient. Now when you are patient, what do? Allah says, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ. Who are the people who are supposed to be patient? الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. These people, the patient people, are those people when any calamity comes or befall on them, they will just say, قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. In other words, we are from Him, from Allah, and we shall return to Him. All of us will come from Him and we shall return to Him. That's a very common verse, right? In fact, if you see even in the WhatsApp, people simply send out the same WhatsApp, when you get the news of death, oh, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, right? Actually, the person who receives the calamity should say that. The person who received the calamity should say that, not other people. Right? That is the teaching, but we do the opposite. Maybe we want to remind the person who faces the calamity to say that, right? Maybe we don't want to do, but I don't think people do that, Unfortunately, I think we have to understand that if we feel or we face with the calamity, we must say that, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. If people say to us, we repeat it. That is the best. Why? Ulaika alayhim. They are the people on whom salawatu min rabbihim. Allah will make salawat to him. Allah will make salawat to him. To those people who say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, when there is calamity. and warahmah and mercy. Wa ulaika humul muhtadun, and these are the people who are received guidance. So very important. When calamity is always a test, and the way you respond to any test is to say that everything is from Allah and we all will return to Him. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. In other words, we must be completely accepting whatever comes to us. Right? Now, when we say patient or sabr, the word sabr is a very big word. It's not a small word. Otherwise, Allah will not say, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And Allah further describes who are the people who are supposed to be in the classification of sabirin. Right? The word sabr has many shades of meanings. There is no English translation with one word. No word in English can translate it in one word. Nobody, no possibility, because it has so many meanings. Right? One meaning is being thorough, not hasty. Right? You are patient means you are not hasty. You don't quickly do certain things, but you are thorough. Opposite of hasty is slow, but it doesn't mean that you are slow. You are slow because you are very thorough. You are very thoughtful. You are very systematic. You think of what is happening. You think of what you should do. That is being thorough. So that is the opposite of hasty. So not hasty, but you are thorough. That's number one. The second one is, it has a lot of meaning. It means patient. It means perseverance. It means constancy, istiqamah. It means steadfastness. It means firmness of purpose. If I were to lecture each of them, it will take a long time. But what I'm trying to say is that the most important here is there are three. One is perseverance. Perseverance means you never give up. Whatever happens, you accept. But you look at it positively. You make dua that Allah will replace you with something better. And you have all the faith in Him, the steadfastness, the firmness of purpose, the constancy that Allah is with you. Allah is testing you, realizing that you will become very perseverant. And to be persevere means you continuously think positively of what you could do in order to overcome that calamity. Right? So that's the second meaning. The third meaning, to be systematic, as opposed to taking chances, or chance action. Yeah? You are not doing things just by chance, without thinking. You must be systematic. There must be logic. There must be rationale. Why we want to do certain things and so on. Right? Then the fourth one, cheerful attitude of resignation and understanding. In other words, rida. You accept it with gladness. You don't accept it with murmuring, with rebellion. No. You accept it with gladness, with cheerfulness. Right? That is rida. And that's very, very important. And understanding the sorrow, the defeat, and also the suffering. Right? As opposed to rebellion or murmuring. As opposed to rebellion or murmuring, but saved from mere passivity by element of constancy or steadfastness. In other words, although you think that way, but you are not passive about things. Passive means you don't do anything. You have to be active. Right? So, and also you have steadfastness. You are constant. Right? These are the meanings of patience. So, patience has tremendous amount of meanings. Right? And that is why Allah says, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Right? The verse before this. Right? So that's very, very important. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that when you talk about condolence, there must be calamity. What are the calamities? Allah has described to you the different types of calamities that can happen to you. Right? Then what you should do, you should react with patience, with sabr. Right? And the way to express it is by saying Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. What is the reward? The reward is Allah will make salawat on you. Ulaika alaihim salawatu min rabbihim wa rahmah, and also mercy. Wa ulaika humul muhtadun, and these are the people who receive guidance. Right? It's very, very important. Okay. So if we can do this, alhamdulillah, it's great. It's great, really great. Right? So, in order to express condolence, for example, there is a death. There is already a way of saying it. But what is it that we should say? People say, Azamallahu ajrak. Azamallahu ajrak. Azam means azim. Azam means agung. I mean, very, what do you call, grandeur, right? In other words, may Allah reward you. Ajrak means the reward. May Allah reward you in big amount, supreme amount. So when you make dua for the person who faces calamity, you say, Azzamallahu ajrak. Whatever calamity it is, doesn't mean that it must be death. Azzamallahu ajrak. In other words, let Allah compensate you with something huge, something immense, something big for you. Azzamallahu ajrak. Then he says also, Wahsan aza'at. Ahsan means to make it better. In other words, the calamity that you are facing, right, will be replaced by something that is better. And normally that's the way. Allah will always replace something better for you without us realizing. If you realize, then you will know that you definitely will get something better. Ahsan azra. And finally, if it is a death, then you say, وَغَفَرَ لِمَيِّتِكَ. And Allah will forgive the dead. Right? So these are the three things that you mention to the person who faces a death calamity. Right? But in other calamities, you can only say, Azzamallahu ajrak. Wa'asan azrak. You don't have to say the third one. Right? So the first two is enough. In other words, we make dua for him. That's the way we condole. Right? In practical terms, when you want to give condolence to people, especially when there is a death, you go and tell him, do you know what happened to such and such a person? That person happens to be his brother, for example. Right? You go and see him, do you know what happened to such and such a person? That guy will get a big shock. That's not the way. Because you are giving a big shock first. No. You should tell him, I heard that so and so has been seriously ill. I heard, you mentioned the name. I heard so and so has been seriously ill for a long time. I just heard 20 minutes ago he passed away. At least he will be prepared to get the news. Because in the first place you mention who is going to face that particular calamity. So he knows. He knows that his brother has been sick. But you tell him, I heard that your brother has been sick for a long time. At least he knows now. He's coming with some news. Right? There was a young man. He was going to US to study. He left behind him a cat, a Persian cat, beautiful cat, and also his grandmother. So he told his friend, please send me a report every month about these two, because I love them so much. So every month, the friend wrote email to him, you know, your grandmother is well, your cat is well. So every month, your grandmother is well, your cat is well. 6 months later, the cat climbed the roof. The cat wanted to catch a bird, but the cat tripped and fell, and the cat died. So he wrote to his friend, last Wednesday evening, your cat climbed the roof. It was trying to catch a bird. It tripped and fell. It died. So the friend told him, you stupid fellow, you should have given me the news in installment. You just say in the first email, your cat climbed the roof. Then I can expect something good or something bad. Then you say next month, you say your cat tripped, trying to catch a bird. Oh, that's good news. Next month, your cat tripped and fell. Oh, then at least I'm quite prepared. The way you did it, I almost got heart attack. I was so shocked. 6 months later, the grandmother died. So he wrote an email. Your grandmother climbed the roof. Because he followed the instruction. So you must know how to tell the news, how to break the news. Right? You cannot break the news in a wrong way. Now the other thing is, apart from saying that, condolences is meant to alleviate, to reduce the grief confronted by the person who has the calamity. Right? So we have not only to remind him of being patient, accepting it, because we know that if he does that, and if he says inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un and nothing else, and you can imagine what kind of reward he will get. Remind him of the big reward that is in store for him by Allah. It is in the Quran. It is very true. Allah never tells you lies. Right? It's the Quran. It is the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Allah says so. Just do what Allah says. So remind him that the reward is so huge. If you go and see the sick person, somebody is very sick. I have a cousin who has been in the hospital for 3 months now. Past few weeks I went to see him. They made a hole in his neck here because his chest, his lung is infected. So there is a lot of phlegm. So it's difficult for him to take out the phlegm himself. So they have to bore a hole here and put a tube so that they can suck the phlegm out. Right? And he cannot speak when he had that hole. But last week I went to see him. They have already closed the hole. Now he can speak. Right? Alhamdulillah. I can see that he is much better when he can speak. You can understand him. Before that, you cannot understand him. He cannot speak. Now he can speak. He's improving. Alhamdulillah. Right? So he has been there for 3 months. What do you expect of him? I'm not sure. Right? It's Allah's miracle. We can never tell. We can only make dua. So what do we do when we see him? I pray for you. Inshallah, Allah will relieve you of your pain. Allah will relieve you of your sickness. Give him all the good things. Give him the support. Right? Not to go and say, oh, I think you are going already. Looks like there is no chance, You better tobat now. That's not the way, isn't it? We always must be positive. Tell him the good things. If you accept whatever is given to you, because this is a test for you, inshallah, heaven for you, straight. No question asked. There are people who will go to heaven without hisab. Right? The VIPs, they go without hisab, straight to Jannah. The second group will go for hisab. After hisab, either go to heaven or go to hell. Right? The third group, no hisab, straight to hell. This is like Fir'aun, Haman, what is the other guy? Qarun, and that one. Also VIP to hell. So you have VIP to heaven, VIP to hell, and then we have the rest, in the middle. Some hell, some heaven. So when everybody has already been settled, some in hell, some in heaven. So people in heaven, very curious, what's happening in hell? So they went to see Allah, because they see Allah every day. So they asked Allah, can we have a look at what is happening in hell? Allah says, if you want to do that, you have to build a bridge from heaven to hell. Okay, so they started building the bridge. And the people in hell heard about the people in heaven building the bridge to see them. They also asked Allah for permission to see the people in heaven. Allah says, you also must construct a bridge from hell to heaven. And you know, the bridge from hell came up much faster than the good bridge from heaven. Then they found out that in hell there were so many contractors with political connections. So when offering condolences about a plight that befalls a relative, friend or acquaintance, it is kind to pray for the dead. Yeah? It is always good to say some prayers for the dead. You know, I read some hadith last night. It says that one Sahabi passed away at night. So they went to bury him at night, right? Without telling the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet heard that somebody died last night. So he asked, who is he? So and so. Why didn't you tell me? Then they said, we didn't want to wake you up at night because we go and bury him at night. No, you should have told me. Then he asked, can you show me where the grave is? So he went to see the grave and started praying for him. Making dua. Of course, making dua. Allahumma ghafir lahu warhamhu wa'afihi wa'afu anhu wa akrim nuzulahu wa nasir barakatuhu. And so on until the end. And then you know what he said? You know, this grave was very dark before I came. Now with my dua, the grave is very bright. The one of the Sahabi who was there listening to the dua, to the prayer of the Prophet, he said, how I wish it was me that the Prophet prayed for. Because immediately the grave became bright. And I read 2 different hadith on 2 different Sahabi like that. Right? So it's good that we go and see the grave and make dua. Because the dua of the living on the dead is, as far as I understand, is 100% maqbul. 100%. If the living make dua for the dead, 100% Allah will grant. There was a case of one person who was an asi. I mean, asi means he has done all kinds of sins. And suddenly, he arrived at some place, some house, and this house is the house of one of the waliullah, right? And he stayed there for a few days, and he died. Right? So not even 3 days, he died. Then this wali, did everything for him, bathed him and so on, shrouded him and so on, and then buried him. And then made dua and told Allah, oh Allah, I received him in good form. Right? I know that he is very good. Now I'm leaving it to him, to you. So please take good care of him. You know what happened? Allah forgave all his sins. Allah forgave all his sins. Right? So make dua as much as we can. Alright. Now I must say that this particular topic is very short. Not only short, but it has not much important things, except 2 things that I must say, I must express, which has been written here. Number 1, sending flowers and reading Quran during funerals. Reading Quran, no problem. But sending flowers is not something that is the sunnah. We don't send flowers, wreaths and so on. That's not part of Islamic culture, not part of Islamic tradition. Please don't do that. Right? Don't send flowers. Some people send flowers to the grave and then after that they collect it and send it to the house. That's not what is expected. Right? Number two, another misguided innovation during funerals is that the car that carries the deceased will broadcast through speakers a recording of the Holy Quran as if announcing the passing away of the deceased. That is the kind of thing that should not be done. We make a broadcast using the Quran, using the recording and so on. It's not the way. We can recite the Quran as you bring the body. You can recite the Quran and so on. But it must be with humility, thoughtfulness, remembrance, reflection, and awareness of Allah. Right? That should be done properly. Okay. Now, and then this particular author says the final word. But before I go to the final word actually here is the final chapter. So this chapter is the final chapter. So before I leave you with the final chapter, I want to go through all the chapters that we have gone through and pick up what I think is important that we should remember and practice, so that the author of this book will also get some reward. The first chapter is on the importance of appearance. Importance of appearance. One of the most important things is to ensure that you wear proper clothing at proper occasions. Proper clothing for proper occasions. Right? For example, for Friday prayers, right? If possible, have special, I wouldn't say uniform, but special clothing for Friday's prayers. Right? When you want to go for weddings, you must wear proper clothing for weddings. If you are going for funerals, then wear proper clothing for funerals. That's what it means. So your appearance must be looked after. In the past, people travel by camel, by donkey and so on, so their hair got, blown out by the wind and so on. So before you meet any guest, if you happen to be in that situation, go and comb your hair first. If you need, you take a bath. If you need, change your clothes and so on. If you are in the house and somebody comes and visit you, right? You are in your, normal dress in the home, in the house. You know that some guest is coming, go and change. Then don't just go in your, ordinary clothes that you stay in the house. No. You got to change to be presentable, more presentable, because you are respecting your guest. Right? So appearance is very important. Okay? That's number one. Number two, entering or leaving a house. Entering or leaving a house with the right food. Whether you want to leave or you want to enter the house, your house, it should be with the right food. Right? And if you enter the house at the mosque or this place, for example, a good place is always with the right, and you go out with the left. But the house always out and in with the right. Okay? That is entering and leaving a house. Now, before you enter the house, you must give warning. In other words, you knock at the door. You must give salam. You must knock at the door. You must get permission, and you must give salam. Three things. Knock at the door, get permission first, and then only you give salam and you go in. Right, that's visiting. Suppose you knock at the door, there is no answer. You don't knock the whole night, right? Until the fellow wake up. No. Just knock 3 times. Still no answer. Another 3 times maybe. No answer. Another 3 times. Already 9. Still no answer. Get out. Don't wait. There was a Sahabi who came to the Sayyidina Umar's house. Sayyidina Umar was the caliph at that time. He knocked at the door. I think it was Abu Musa Ash'ari. He came to the house and knocked at the door. No answer. Knock again, no answer. Knock again 3 times, no answer. He went off. Then as he went off, he was saying something. Then Sayyidina Umar heard him and was wondering why he didn't come in. So later on when he met Abu Musa and asked him, why didn't you come in when you came to my house? He said, look, I heard the Prophet said, if there is no reply from the guest, from the host, then just don't wait, go. In other words, Sayyidina Umar did not know that hadith. Right? So if he had known, he would have understood. Right? Because he heard the voice of Abu Musa, that's why he knows who came and not coming in. Right? If you want to enter the room of your mother, or your father for that matter, your parents' room, in the house, you stay with them, you want to enter the room of your parents, do you get permission? You must get permission. If you are the father, you want to enter the room of your son, who is already matured, right? You must get permission. Don't simply barge in. More so if you are the father and you want to get into the room of your daughter. The son wants to get into the room of the sister, the same thing. They must get permission. Because you don't want to be embarrassed. Ibn Abbas was asked by a Sahabi, should I ask permission from my mother if I want to go into his house, into his room? She said yes. Because you don't want to get embarrassed. Right? So that's very important. Yeah? Most of us don't do that. We simply barge in. It's wrong. Okay? You must knock and then let them decide to tell you whether you can come in or not. Otherwise, don't go in. Now, when you go home, for example, from somewhere, from the mosque or from somewhere, right? Make sure that you give some signal to the people in the house. For example, you cough, right? You make some noise, like you are giving the signal that you are coming back, right? Don't simply quietly go in, sneak in, as though you are an inspector, trying to find out something. That's not good. Yeah? You can give people shock, so that's not good. All right. When you knock at the door and somebody come and ask you, who are you? Then you say, not your name, you say something else, right? Maybe nickname or whatever, You shouldn't. You should say who you are. Huh? Don't simply try to identify yourself clearly. Right. That's the second one. Manners of visiting. Here, if you are invited, this is common practice, you know that you are not going. What do you say? Inshallah. That's hypocrisy. That is hypocrisy. Right. You better tell him, I'm not coming, rather than saying inshallah. But inside, no. That means hypocrisy. Right. Very serious. And if you want to decline a visit, inform beforehand, right? So that people know. Otherwise, you tell somebody, look, I'm going to visit you at such and such a time tomorrow, and for some reason you cannot come, and you never tell him. That guy would be waiting from from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, waiting for you, waiting with tea, with cake, with this and that and so on, and then you don't come. You don't even give any reason that you are not coming. You don't even tell him that you are not coming. What more, not to tell him the reason, right? That shouldn't be the case. Right? When you go into the house and you visit, don't look everywhere in the house. Why? there might be some things that the host doesn't like to be looked at. Yeah? So don't simply look everywhere. The moment the door of the room is open, oh, you want to pick. That's not the way. Right? When you want to sit, don't sit between two people. Why? Because these two people may be discussing certain things, right? And then when you sit in the middle, you disturb them, right? So don't sit between two. Sit either on the right or on the left of both of them. Always wait for the host to tell you where to sit. Don't simply choose the best seat, because the best seat might be for the host, right? Or might be reserved for a very important guest, right? And you go and sit. If you know that you are younger than the rest, make sure that you respect the elders. Respect should be given to the elders, right? Always give respect to the elders in the sense that if the drinks are being offered, you offer to the elders first. And you always offer the drinks to the right, not to the left. Okay? Sayyidina Abu Bakar once was seated on the left of the Prophet ﷺ. There was a young man who was seated on the right of the Prophet. When the drink was given to the Prophet and he was supposed to pass the drink, the next person to get is the one on the right, who happens to be a very young man. So he asked for his permission. Can you give up your right to be given the first, to be the first to be given the drink, because I want to give to Abu Bakr? He said, no, I want to retain my right. The Prophet cannot do anything except to give him. Because it is his right, because he's on the right. So this is the adab. Okay? Alright. Timing of your visit, also very important. Don't go in the middle of the night or early in the morning. Immediately after Fajr, go to his house. Maybe we can expect some coffee. So choose the right time. Okay. Alright. Next chapter, manners of conversation. Here, what is important is in the azan. If you hear the azan, I've seen in the mosque, people talk when the azan is being called. Yeah? That is not the right adab. The right adab is to listen. The Prophet ﷺ was told or was asked the following. Some of the companions went to see the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, Sayyidina Bilal is very, very lucky because he is the one who calls for the prayer. So he has all the reward for calling for the prayers. What do we get? He said, no, if you were to listen to him intently, and repeat after him, you will get the same reward. That's one hadith. The other hadith is, and this is very important, if you listen to the azan and repeat after the muazzin, and then recite the dua, Allahumma, what do you call it? Allahumma rabba hadhihi da'wati tamma wa salatil qa'imah, until the end. You know what the Prophet said? Because at the end you say, آتي سيدنا محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة والشرف والدرجة العالية الرفيعة وبعثه مقام محمود الذي وعدته إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. In other words, you are praying so that Allah will give the darajah of the Prophet higher and higher. Right? You make prayers so that the Prophet will get higher and higher darajah. Right? You know what the Prophet said? The person who consistently does this, I am obligated to give him shafa'ah. I am obligated to give him shafa'ah. So make sure, don't say a word. Don't even look at your phone to read your WhatsApp or email or what. Just don't do anything else. Listen to the caller of the azan intently and answer him and make the dua. Insha'Allah, we get the shafa'ah. Very important. Right? Now, when is the shafa'ah to be given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Do you know the what do you call the sequence of the activities of the events after you are being resurrected from the barzakh, after the resurrection, right? We shall all be going to mahshar. We shall move to mahshar. I do not know how long it will take. Yeah, I don't know because I've never experienced, but it will take a long time. Right? Some people will fly. Some people will crawl on their feet. Some people crawl on fours. Some people ride camel. Some people ride horses. Some donkeys. Some kaldai. Some walk on the face. So the Prophet ﷺ was asked, how can you walk on the face? The Prophet answered, if you can walk on the feet, because Allah makes you walk on the feet, Allah can also make you walk on the face. In actual fact, the angel will pull you and you will face downwards and your face will be dragged. That's the hadith. And that's probably the worst. Right? When Siti Fatimah Az-Zahra moves from the grave to the mahshar, there will be an announcement. Someone is going to pass, and she will pass. So that's the darajah of Siti Fatimah. Announcement will be made for her to move from her grave to mahshar. When we are in mahshar, the hadith Qudsi, after people have been waiting for a long time, it's not a short time, okay? It's a very long time. One day in mahshar is equivalent to 50,000 years in the world. One day in mahshar is equivalent to 50,000 years here. So imagine. So the people are so tired. They went to see Prophet Adam alayhi salam and asked him to intercede for us, to ask God to make the hisab faster. He said, no, I cannot, because I made a big sin of taking Wakhuldi. Go and see Noah. People rushed to go and see Prophet Noah. Noah also declined to say, no, for 1,000 years I got only 80 people. You go and see Moses. People go and see Moses. Moses said, no, I cannot, because I killed somebody. Then went to see Jesus. Jesus said, no, I cannot, because people claim I'm the son of God. Go and see Muhammad. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will say, yes, come, follow me. Then he will face Allah. Then he will say, At-tahiyyatul mubarakatul salawatul tayyibatu lillah. Then Allah will say, yes, what do you want? Please make the hisab faster. But before that, I want to give shafa'at to my ummah. The first round, how many? 70,000. And when the Prophet said the first round is 70,000, the Sahabis asked, the companions asked him, you only 70,000? No, I will ask for more. How many more? Another 70,000. Then Allah will say, go. Then, is that all? No, I will ask for more. The Prophet ﷺ will ask until he stop asking. I do not know how many times. But inshallah, He will take all of us. That shafa'at means no hisab, nothing. And the shafa'at comes immediately at mahshar. So those people who have to go through hisab is after the shafa'at. In other words, those who don't get the shafa'at will go through hisab. Those who get shafa'at, no hisab. That is why answering the azan is very important. You see my point? Don't talk. Most of the time you sit down and somebody else next to you and say, where are you going after this? And you answer, finish. Yeah. If you ask anything, just keep quiet. I think if we practice this, inshallah, because the Prophet ﷺ said, I am obligated to give you shafa'at. Alright? So that's the takeaway for this conversation. When you talk in a suitable tone, don't shout for nothing. And when you listen, you also listen properly. When people are talking to you, look at his face, right? Intently listening to him, right? Some people stare at him, the eyes closed, the mind closed, because they are very sleepy. So the art of listening is very important. Discussions and debates, yeah? Don't swear by Allah for nothing. Social manners, next one. Respect and favor the elderly. That's very important. The elderly must give respect and favor, especially your parents. Especially your parents. I don't think I need to go through that very detail. The elderly are always important. If you walk with the elderly, one day Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma was walking, and the Prophet he was praying with the Prophet. The Prophet pulled him right next to him. He stepped back. And then after the prayers, the Prophet asked him, why did you step back? He said, can a 12-year-old boy be of the same status as the Rasul? It's impossible. That's why I step back. Of course, the Prophet is different. But the elderly, you have to give them the respect. Okay? The elderly are to be served first. Yeah? Because they are more hungry than the young. Okay? Then with parents, I think you know, I don't have to go through that. Respect the poor. Respect the poor. Yeah? Don't look down at the poor. Right. Okay. Next chapter, manners of eating. Yeah. Take the food that is nearest to you. Don't take the furthest one because it is the best or the most delicious. Yeah? When you eat, don't make too much noise. When you chew the food, don't make too much noise. Drinking. The Prophet ﷺ never drink in one gulp. He always takes 3 gulps at least, so that the water will go down slowly, right? Avoid gluttony. Yeah? Don't show that you are a glutton. Yeah? Gold and silver cutlery should be avoided. Okay, that is manners of eating. Weddings. Of course, number one, to be properly dressed. Number two, make sure that when you talk, have some small talks among yourselves, right? The topic is always cheerful, pleasant to hear, not something very, very, what do you call it? Not so nice to hear, right? Because it is a very wonderful occasion, very cheerful occasion. So make it happy. Yeah? Don't come and bring all the sad stories. Yeah? So even that is being taught. Okay. Next, visiting the sick. Right? First is the prayer for the sick. Right? Now, visiting a patient is a must. Visiting the sick amongst you is a must. As you know, there is a hadith, it's a hadith Qudsi, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, how come you never visit me when I was sick? So that means that it is compulsory, wajib. And you have to pray for him. Imam Nawawi seems that whenever he visits a sick, he will make all the dua, all the prayers, until the patient is relieved of his sickness, relieved from the pain, at least, not necessarily cured, but at least relieved from the pain. Then only he leaves. To Imam Nawawi, right? Of course, his dua is mustajab, right? We cannot achieve that. We shouldn't be staying too long when visiting the sick. Not too long. When you see them, always give them good, positive remarks. Yeah? The visitor also ought to wear clean clothes with a fresh scent in order. Right? Make use of good fragrance and so on. Yeah? And make the conversation very light. And avoid gloomy talk that might exacerbate the patient's distress. One of the books on Islamic medicine that I read before, when the doctors, the Muslim doctors those days, Muslim doctors, they go around the ward, right? They will go in pairs, two of them, two doctors. And then when they pass by a particular patient, then they will talk among themselves, For example, they say, that patient, they will talk loud enough for the patient to hear, right? But they are actually talking among the doctors, So the doctor will tell the other doctor, that patient, Mr. A, I saw him yesterday, and today he looks much better. Don't you think so? Just to give that positive remark. Right? That was what those doctors, the Muslim doctors, were doing. Right? And to that extent, In other words, it is always the psychology as well. It is always the psychology, the emotional, and so on and so forth. It's not just the physical, right? Okay. Do not criticize or object to the treatment by the physician. Yeah. Don't simply object because you are not a physician yourself. If you are a doctor, it's quite a different matter. Even then, you shouldn't object openly. You should go and discuss with him privately. Yeah. Okay. Next one, condolence. Finish. So with that, I just hope that we shall be able to practice at least some of this. Yeah? so that the author of this book will get some reward for your practices, and I also will get some commission, inshallah. Yeah? So with that, I close my class and say that this is the last class for me. Yeah? So next month, no class. Alright? Because that is already khatam. So thank you very much. Shall we recite tasbih kafarah in al-asr? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. العصر والإنسان في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. السلام عليكم.